All right, everybody, welcome back to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, professional grade game calls made for every hunter.
If you're trying to get close with elk, turkey, predators, or waterfowl, Phelps has you covered.
That's right, so go to phelpsgamecalls.com. Get them close. All right, here we go. Part 2. Dustin is back in studio. What up, man?
What's up? So you were talking last time we were in here, which wasn't long ago. You were talking about a book that you read about black-tailed deer, and you read it, and you went out and you saw tons of black-tailed deer.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So Trophy Blacktail Science of the Hunt by Scott Haugen, and it's amazing how I met Scott Haugen actually, because he's not a local guy. He's from Oregon. He originated down there. Hunted coastal blacktails and every other kind of blacktail. Had a TV show sponsored by Trigicon to this day, I believe.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
To this day.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
been probably like 15 years. He was supposed to have a black bear book. I'm not sure what happened to it, but I was talking to him in probably 2012 when I was talking to him, and
Oh,
he was like,
I remember
"This
that
thing
because
just came out."
yeah, you and I were both talking to him. Yes.
Was it at the Cabela's? So I was down at Cabela's doing my my hours for Master Hunter program.
Yep.
My
Voluntary stuff?
volunteer hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I met him down there. They had like a day of a thing going on there. So it was kind of one of those things. I get some time with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and that, and then I moved on to get my Master Hunter program certificate and all that other stuff. But since gave it up and moved on. But met Scott there, and he was talking about this book, and I was pretty fascinated by the seminar he put on that day, and so I got the book, read the book, like almost nonstop. I mean, I barely can read a book, so I could read.
He's not saying he cannot read.
I'm very
He's
literate.
saying-
I just my attention span, my eyes get very heavy quickly, and then I can see like the letters start to float, and then my head falls back, and I wake up and I think it's tomorrow, and it's been like 10
And that's just reading blueprints.
yeah, right. And blueprints is another story. I can hang there. Schematics, blueprints are my thing. But yeah, so I read the book, and I had a timeline in mind where I was going to finish it right before the season started, so everything would be pretty fresh. And so did that. Went out the weekend before scouting, and literally, like things that it talks about how the blacktail behave, what they're looking for, what they're thinking, which is kind of one of the weird things, or the theory behind their strategic positioning was very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, man, this kind of makes sense, And so I started looking in these spots that the book had highlighted, and I had highlighted them too. I'm like, I don't know. I gave you the book. I don't know if I might have marked it or something. But
There is a couple marks. They're not really highlighted, but
highlights like an underline or a star or something, parenthesis or something. Anyhow, I notated that this is important. Problem with highlighters, they soak through, and the next page is highlighted too. So I don't. So I quotated the part I wanted to remember or read again, but started just looking at these spots, and I would see a spot on the hill with my naked eye, and I'd pull my binoculars up, and boom, there's a deer right there. It's like, yep, there's one right there. Going on. Oh, there's one right there. Same thing. Just by looking for spots. So that was very not only eye opening, but amazing to see that you could actually just take the words and the experience of somebody else and say, here's where I find deer typically. Here's their thought behind why they're there, and this is what you should be looking for, and then take it to the field, and it actually translate into, there's a deer standing in front of me right there. I would have never have spotted these deer. Maybe it would have, but I would never have picked these locations based on my own assumption that there would have been a deer standing there. So that was to me, invaluable.
Oh,
And Dave, by the way, I want my book back too.
yeah, I think I have that.
I know.
Yeah.
half
I
the
figured
trick
that.
is just figuring out where to look. And then the other trick is getting close.
Yeah, once you figure where they're at,
No. There's a in between that. You gotta get the wind right before you try to get them close.
Right. You want to know what's funny is before a couple of years ago, I didn't even pay attention to the wind.
Hmm.
And my dad never wind checked anything. When there wasn't anything I was taught to check was the wind. So prior to 30 years old, I never checked wind. And it wasn't until I was watching something that, like on Hushin or Elk Shape or one of those YouTube channels where they were constantly hitting the wind, probably born and raised because they're hitting that wind checker like every 5 minutes. Where I was like, oh, maybe I should be doing that.
Well, so elk, they will typically always come in downwind.
Yeah.
Where deer, they'll usually just come in. Like you're not like, I bet this deer's going to circle downwind for me. But an elk will always typically, like almost, unless you get them in the prime rut and you have everything going on, they're coming in.
Which how I shot my bull.
A bull will typically circle around and come in downwind.
If you're calling it in, yeah.
Yeah.
It will always do that. So when I got my bull, I got the drop on him. They didn't know where I was, and I just spanked his butt. I didn't have to call or do anything. Well, I did chirp a little bit on a cow call, but it was different circumstances. But yeah, they will. So you really need to know your wind.
Sure.
With blacktail, they use their eyes a lot.
Eyes,
their ears a lot.
Yeah.
So if they smell you, like they'll come in and they'll come in any direction.
Sure.
But they'll come and they'll look. They're more curious. They'll look and they'll listen.
Then their ears will go 360.
Yep, and they have their own set of behaviors that they take.
Right.
But with the blacktail, they typically will freeze. Like they think you can't see them. They're like,
I've noticed the same behavior with whitetail.
Well, until they verify.
I can't speak to muleys. I haven't really hunted any muleys.
Let's say you have a whitetail, right?
Yeah.
Wide open, they freeze.
Mm-hmm.
You move closer, what are they going to do?
If they got their eyes on you on a dead bead, they'll take off.
If they see you moving, they're gone,
They
right?
see you move, you're gone.
And it's like a twitch.
Yeah.
You can move your eyeballs, and they're like,
Yeah.
Well, blacktail don't do that. Only sometimes.
It's only up to 40 yards, man.
Yeah, they'll stand there.
I'm not joking. It's 40.
Yeah. I have a theory in my head, and probably everybody else does too. But a lot of times, if I see a blacktail and they stand up and they're standing there looking,
yeah,
I'll look down or away.
Oh, okay. You won't make eye contact.
I won't even pretend. I pretend I don't even see them.
Right.
And I'll keep doing my thing because they'll just stand there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm walking through the woods and something stands up, unless you're too close and you spook them and they bound off,
right?
You jump them clean and they're gone.
They'll usually stop around 40 and look back, though.
Yeah, they're like, what is that? Because they're like, am I being chased? What's going on? What was that? I feel comfortable. I'm in a good comfort zone, but I need to know what that was.
Yeah.
But if they smell you, then they're probably gone.
Gone.
Yeah. So,
they're in the next county.
Yeah, they will go and go. But they don't necessarily have to come in downwind. Like elk would prefer to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had elk come in not downwind, but I've also had them try circle me, and I've played leapfrog over. If you could picture like a bouncing ball going down a road, a flat road, bing, bing, bing.
Mm-hmm.
I was the bouncy ball on the mirror side of that road.
Okay.
Underneath of it, bing, 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 trying to get in front of it. So it believed that I was an elk. That elk thought, this elk's trying to get down my wind. And then he would try to get down my wind, and I would hurry up and get down his wind. And so he's fully convinced, this is another freaking bull trying to come downwind. And then I raked a tree when I got to the point where I couldn't get any further in front of him, and he came beelining right to that sound, and my buddy didn't shoot. But that was a 5x5 I could have easily shot from where I was standing while I raked.
Why didn't you shoot, Dave?
Different buddy.
Oh, different buddy.
Yeah.
Different Dave.
A guy named Chris. A guy named Chris. So he didn't shoot that. And there's times I'd missed elk in front of Dave. I missed elk in front of Dave. So I've had my chances, but a lot of times throughout the years I have hunted with new people and people that just was like, you know what, I'm cool with calling. I get just as much joy out of calling the elk and celebrating with other people that shoot them. I don't have to be up front, Right. And with newer people, you can't just put yourself up front because you've shot with them and you see that, okay, they can shoot a bow. But can they call an elk? Do they have experience doing that? Do they need some other help to get the animal close enough?
Right.
And so I've taken that role on and I enjoy it.
Right.
So that's why I've kind of backseated myself intentionally to do those things and have more of a team atmosphere.
Sure.
And that was pretty much me this year with Mike. I had him as the shooter, mm-hmm. and just sat back and called. And I actually have a lot of fun calling. It is fun. This year it did suck that I called in probably like 4 or 5 different groups of hunters, but I was just like, hey man, did I sound good? Like, dude, we thought you were a bull. It was crazy. So, I get into it. I start raking stuff and stomping around on the ground and stuff. And I don't know, I have fun.
Well, so that book sounds like it was super helpful for you. Not my book, the other book.
Yeah,
I mean, my
no.
book will be helpful for you too if you're listening, but I'm just saying the book that you read, the Blacktail.
Just strictly blacktails in blacktail behavior. Yeah. So super helpful book. I mean, if you're looking for information on if you're well, even if you've hunted for a long time, you're gonna find something useful in everything you read. So if you find something useful, use it.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, it was a Whitetails book. It's called Whitetails Behavior, Ecology, and Conservation by Erwin Bauer. My grandpa gave me this book when I was in high school, I think. And I read it, and it's just about whitetails and their body language and their behavior. Basically like that Blacktail book for whitetails. And kind of the same thing, except for me, I looked at the behavior differently, and it helped me like follow or stalk the animal once I have eyes on it, even if it's spotted me. So like that story where I talk about becoming a bow hunter,
Mm-hmm.
chapter in my book, right? And I put that stock on those blacktail. Now, even though they were blacktail, the body language, if you watch them, is the same. Blacktail, whitetail, even muleys, I think, from the videos I've seen, the way they move their ears, they pay attention to sound, when they put their head down to eat, or when they fake you out and make you think they're eating, but they're not. They're really just watching to see if you're going to move. I used all that information to get closer and go from 300 to 60 yards. Now, I didn't have a rangefinder. It was my first year. 60 yards looked like 100, so I never shot. And I told the guy I was with, hey, I'm sorry, I blew it. And he was just like, I've never seen anybody stalk a blacktail like that before. That was pretty cool. So, but that's another good book. I think that for anybody that's listening, any book that you can find that has solid information for hunting, and that's what you want to get into, read it, spend some time, learn your prey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's tons of books out there, and I don't think you can go wrong with any book that you pick up because all the information that you gather is going to help you become a better hunter.
Sure.
So speaking of gathering information, if I was to ask Dave, hey Dave, where should I not go hunting? You would have like a little list of areas you're like, I didn't see any animals here, 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 and here, right? So even the bad information, or what Dave would consider bad hunting trip, is good information.
Right.
Because he's like, I didn't see any sign, didn't see this stuff, so I'm not gonna jump in there and primarily focus in that section, but I can use that to my advantage. So even a book that primarily maybe you can't use all the information. If you get one thing, it was probably worth your time.
Definitely, because it's just we always talk about the little nuggets. It's just one little nugget out of that book that you can take and put it in your arsenal.
Right.
You could read a whole. It doesn't matter what it is, a whole book on mule deer hunting, and then you could have been hunting for 15 years, but then all of a sudden there's just that one thing, like, oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Boom, light bulb.
For me, one of the biggest epiphanies I had when we started mule deer hunting years ago, probably 8 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, 8
9
years ago.
When you say because we pay attention to the wind with mule deer big time, and so when you think about downwind, I'm sitting here initially I'm thinking downwind is any parallel. So if I had a stick outside the left and right side of my body, it goes out 1.5 miles on each side, right? My scent is downwind at every incremental distance left and right of my body for 1.5 miles, right? I got this huge patch of wind that's downwind.
Mm.
You take up a lot of area.
Well, in my head, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I'm thinking downwind is every downwind from me, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So in my brain, I'm going, well, that's downwind. But I started to sneak up on mule deer based on columns. So I started breaking in my wind into like graph paper grids in my head. And I started thinking like, I have all these lines going across the graph paper, left and right, up and down. And if I'm in this column, my wind's right here. If I can get close to that deer with my column not touching his column, then he's not going to smell me.
Oh, I see what
And
you're
I
saying.
would get
because it's not
close.
directly downwind.
Yep.
Not directly, but I was.
Got it.
He was downwind, but I
Yeah.
was parallel with him.
Yeah.
So I would make my column. I would break the ground into columns and think this is my wind column here.
So how wide is your column?
3 feet.
Okay.
I would think 3-4 feet.
Sure.
But I could shoot for 40 yards.
Sure.
So I'm not going to be close to him. if I get my columns, if I get downwind, if I'm in a position where I'm like, okay, I'm almost directly downwind, I would separate my column from his column and try to get closer that way.
Hey, that's a pretty good line of thought. That's
Yeah.
why you're an inventor and I'm just a writer.
Well, that was my thought.
I didn't think of that.
I was like,
Well,
that
it
makes
does
sense.
it does work.
Yeah.
And it depends because of the area that Dave and I primarily would hunt for mule deer. The wind would just be whipping,
well, 20 miles an hour is a good wind.
Oh, yeah.
especially our archery hunting.
Sometimes it would get really whipping,
Sure.
Yeah.
30-mile gusts, or possibly even more. But
Mhm.
it's typically windy in open areas, and this was not like a swirly. It was just stiff one direction.
This wasn't like high altitude, like mountain mule deer hunting. This was kind of flat,
Okay.
It wasn't like swirly.
hilly areas.
And you could still apply that to any other scenario. You just have to be aware of your terrain, and is this wind going up and hitting a knob and splitting
Sure.
and going left and right
Mhm.
around a hillside. Now you would take your wind column and blow it into on the top of a bowl. It would hit that bowl like when they do a wind tunnel test on a car.
Yeah.
And you see it go over the top sides, and
Sure.
they can tell like, okay, we need a little fin here to make down pressure on both sides of the car. 'Cause it splits evenly over the windshield, right? But if it was all smooth, it would just go straight over the back. But when you hit terrain, that air divides.
Sure.
So you have scent on left and right. So paying attention to all those little things.
You really have to get like, I don't know, use your imagination when you're out
Yeah, it
hunting
was.
these areas.
I would get close. I mean, I have a video of.
We would,
I was probably like 10 yards from a bedded one, and I snuck in on it just in sagebrush, and it was. I was moving a lot because I had to go
You had to go
over a
pee?
hill, down right
You
in
had to
front of
go,
it,
okay.
snuck directly in its. I mean, it was looking my direction, snuck down between the sagebrush, all the way down below it, up a creek bed, and got right next behind it, and made a little video. It's pretty sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I did the wind column in the graph paper theory. I guess I'll call it that in my head. And
It's a theory until you prove it, then it's fact, right?
That's pretty factual then.
yeah,
As a matter of fact,
that's a fact.
yeah, it's a
'Cause
fact.
it works because I was doing it too, and he was on a different hillside. I was on another hillside, and I'm doing the same thing. And I was close. I almost shot the largest buck I've ever seen in my whole life.
Oh, and you already have a muley?
Yeah.
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 But you don't have a whitetail.
No, I have blacktail, a muley, and I've only shot one buck. I have a couple muley does, but no whitetail. I've never even hunted whitetail ever.
Oh, okay.
Never.
Okay. We need to help each other out because I haven't ever hunted muleys. So I've got whitetail. I got the blacktail. We're both like one creature away from a slam.
Where are you at, Dave?
No, I haven't shot any whitetail.
You shot a muley,
Mhm.
muley doe.
And clearly you got a couple blacktail in here.
Well, a lot of those aren't mine. Let
Oh, right.
me see here. So,
But what about this little guy right here?
well,
That was his last
Euro,
year.
that Euro one right there,
Yeah.
and this one right here, those are both mine.
Okay.
That spike on the left, I think, is mine with the fur.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one is. Yeah.
And then, when I say spike, I'm talking like a 10-inch spike. It's not.
Yeah, it's a big old giant.
It's a big
It's
spike.
a whopper of the woods.
Yeah.
And I killed that bull, and I killed this cow right here is my first one.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and probably like 18 other deer, I guess. I don't even know. I started stomping them for a while there.
Yeah.
I was getting like 2 a year, and then I would get like a master hunter second deer.
Oh, yeah.
So when I didn't pull a second deer tag, they had a master hunter second deer tag. So I got 2 a year for like 6 years for a while. I mean,
That'd be
it
nice.
was ridiculous.
That's why I was looking at the Master Hunter setup, and I was like, maybe I should go after that and become a Master Hunter.
Well, it never hurt me, to have that. The thing about it,
Go ahead, Dave.
if you hold yourself to a higher standard, right? It's all about being the representation for the hunters in the hunting community to that normal community.
Sure.
So you're putting yourself out there to be a representative of the hunting community to non-hunters. Through community service, through outreach programs, through how you carry yourself, how you abide by the rules, and there's always this group of people, right? You have like anytime you have a group of 100 people, there's 5 or 6 jackasses in there. no matter what they say, no matter how they present themselves, you don't know their character until they show it, right?
Yeah.
So even within this group, there's a couple guys that have been there in the past that have made bad character reference towards the group in their actions. So there's that stipulation. So some people are like, "Oh, the Master Hunters is a joke. We had these guys in there, a bunch of know-it-alls, and do this stuff, and total negativity." Initially, but it can happen in any group. But
Sure.
overall, as a group, it's a good thing. So, and they provide a lot of community service hours um, towards helping with landowner relations. So a lot of, if you go out in Washington State and it says, "Feel free to hunt," or "Hunting with permission," "Hunting by permission only," or "must have written permission," all those things are put forth through the Department of Fish and Wildlife and their landowner relations. That happens in a lot of different ways. One being there's an outreach to the landowner, right? The landowner has a need. The need is fulfilled either through Department of Fish and Wildlife or through a Department of Fish and Wildlife program. Or if someone's just generally nice, like, "Hey, y'all, I got this land. You want to hunt it?" They're like, "Okay, no problem. We'll put a sign up there. We can have people come and ask. We can list you on the website. You can sign up for hunting on certain days online." All these different ways, right? But one large way they do it is by having the master hunters volunteer hours on their property.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to example, I hunted North Bend for elk. They had a huge problem with elk in town. The golf course specifically, it was in the newspaper and all sorts of stuff where they were tearing up the golf course. So they had these big fences erected, and they're like 10 feet tall. So
Elk fences.
yeah, around the golf course, and so that kind of curtailed it. But the fences started getting really mangled, So they're like, "Well, now we need to fix these fences." So in order to maintain that relationship and to, I guess, harbor good feelings between everybody there, and because they're gonna have to start paying the golf course for the damage
Sure.
because they own those elk. Department of Fish and Wildlife manages those elk, and if they become a problem, like if a wolf eats a cow from a farmer's field, right? They have to pay the farmer for that cow because they put them there, right?
Mhm.
It's not just, you can't just do what you want with your wildlife, and everybody else pays the price. So the Master Hunter program would come out and do fence mending. They do it on farms all across the east side when the elk come down and feed. Those big hay storage facilities and stuff like that, elk will come down and eat the sides out of those big hay silos, big barns they have, and collapse it because they'll eat the hay right at the bottom and it'll collapse. Now you're talking, I don't know, dollar wise,
That's a lot of money.
tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in hay bales that just rolled down the hill, because the elk are eating the bottom out of that thing. Basically, the foundation out of this big stack is gone. So it's an issue, and so master hunters do that. And then there are some things when there's issues. I've done hazings where, I don't know if you know, but like pumpkins. So pumpkins will grow on a vine, and they have a flower that buds. Each flower that buds is one pumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the vines the vines grow, and then the flowers bloom, and then here comes a herd of cow elk, and they'll eat 700 or 800 flowers
That's
in
a lot of flowers.
probably no time.
I think
Well,
I need to have a pumpkin patch.
That's a lot of pumpkins, right?
Yeah.
So the farmer's like, "Hey, y'all owe me $100,000 worth of pumpkins," and they're like, "Well, how do we know?" Like, "Well, I got like 72 miles of vine with no flowers, and we calculate every foot and a half there should be a flower. So
Sure.
let's just do simple math, and they can actually calculate what they lost, compare their crop yield to last year's crop yield. They can do all sorts of stuff, right? So the Department of Fish and Wildlife would reimburse them those funds.
Right.
All that stuff is taken,
Or
but they have to. And in this,
so Dave and I was on the program
Yeah.
where we would go out volunteer hours,
Right.
and we'd shoot fireworks
over
at the
over.
yeah.
The spark, they call it the crack bang.
Yeah.
So it's basically a flare gun,
Mm-hmm.
and so they would come out right at dusk, like they knew when they were coming out.
Sure.
So basically, it's a hazing to get them to learn not to come here.
Right.
So we had these little flare guns, and you would go and you'd sit in your vehicle, and you'd wait for the elk to come out. And when you see it first, we did an air horn blast.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd see them coming out, and and they don't leave, and you freaking load one in the little flare gun, and you shoot it over the top, like at a 45-degree angle.
Sure.
And it goes, and then it boom blows up in the air, just like an M80.
Scares the poop out of them.
Scares them out of the field.
Yeah.
But yeah,
They do the same thing at airports with
the
with
geese and ducks and
shotguns.
stuff.
Yeah. They shoot blanks First time I heard it at Renton Airport, I was like, "What? Who's shooting? What's going on?"
Yeah, they don't want those things colliding with aircraft taking off,
Yeah.
So, so we would haze them and they would run and they would, maybe it saved who knows how many pumpkins, but no elk were injured during the process.
Right.
And the farmer got their result and the game department got their result and the elk moved on and they got to eat grass instead of pumpkin flowers,
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But as far as going into the program, I would say it's overall a positive. It is what you make of it. If you're going to it looking for like hunting opportunity, it's a terrible idea. It's not something that leads you into extra tags. I mean, there's the Master Hunter deer tags, so if you want to do deer, but it doesn't give you extra access to a moose or an elk. There are draws, but there's also 2,000 other people for those one tags, if it's in your area.
Yeah.
Or they do like an on-call hunt coordinator hunt. So if you can get drawn for a moose tag, a nuisance moose.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't they do nuisance tags?
Yeah, so a couple things have to line up right. It's like a solar eclipse. Right? You have to have a nuisance moose for one, which is probably not that common. It might be a nuisance today and then it's gone. It has to be a habitual thing where they can say, okay, we have a problem with this moose. We're going to set up. We've tried hazing them. We've tried whatever. So they go through these other processes first. And then we're going to go, okay, we're going to do a removal. But we're going to do a removal only for 1 week. So you're going to be in a hunt list of like 4 other people. And they're going to call, say you get drawn first. And then Dave gets drawn and then I get drawn, right? So you're 1, he's 2, I'm 3. So they call you up and they say, hey, can you hunt Monday?
And you're like, nope, sorry,
Okay,
I gotta work.
Dave, can you hunt Monday?
Oh yeah.
Okay, Dave, Dave, you can hunt Monday, Dave. You need to be there at 9 a.m. You're going to hunt till 4. Now you have to travel wherever you're at to that location. Could be in Spokane.
Way up north.
Yeah, it could be any.
That's where it's gonna be.
Yeah, and be available during those times.
It's not in the Puget Sound, people.
Yeah, and they'll
Stay
say,
away
okay,
from Northwest
you're going to
Track.
be here for 3 days, and you can hunt between the hours of 9 to 4. And that's it.
Right.
So, but you have to be like, if you have a full-time job, they don't call you for weekend hunts. They're like, hey, we need you Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And so it could be beneficial. You might lead to some extra hunting, but mainly you're hazing, and I would say the opportunity it's an opportunity, but it's not a reason to do the program.
Right.
If you want to help out, I just was, after I think I was in there for 10 years and I was like, you know what? I got a lot going on,
So then, with all that experience, from being in that Master Hunters program, did you see that article about the grizzly possibly being reintroduced to Washington, and what do you think about that?
I will tell you this. I had an exit interview. I'm probably going to put a target on my back with this. During my exit interview, they said, well, why do you decide to leave the program? And my simplest, if I boil it down to a nutshell, why I decided to leave the program is because under the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Washington State, I watched for 10 years as our resources simply reduced and blunder. I don't understand what they're thinking about and why they decided to do the things they've done, but it hasn't been positive.
Right. Well, I mean,
you
taking
can
spring bear away, and
not only spring bear. I mean, the blues elk herd is dwindling to damn near 0.
yeah,
There's a problem, and it's a predator problem,
There's
and they're not doing anything about it.
That's not the only problem.
No, I'm just saying that's one.
I'm not talking about in the blues. In the blues, that could be 99% of the problem, right? In other areas of the state, there are problems as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, how Fish and Wildlife has ran, our wildlife has not been correct.
You're gonna get me preaching, bro.
Well, I don't want to go down a super big rabbit hole, but I mean, I understood why Dave left.
yeah,
Because, I mean, we had a conversation about, this whole thing in general before he even did that. And, I was just like, hey, man, if that's how you feel,
right,
then that's what you want to do. Because you're making a statement. You're making, like, to be a master hunter. I mean, it takes a lot of hours, takes a lot of
Sure.
time, and for Fish and Wildlife, they're looking towards their master hunters for information.
Sure.
And for him to exit the program, like, I think that's a big statement.
Yeah. Well, I've got friends that don't hunt Washington for certain species just because it's their words is they don't agree with the way things are going.
Never mind the hunt part of it, right? Let's just say we're three people passionate about the environment, right? We're passionate about the outdoor environment.
Mm-hmm.
We respect the animals. Of course, we hunt the animals, but like I said, I passed up a bunch of deer. I'm not there just
Well,
to
they
kill
have
the
to
animal.
be there too for us to hunt.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about the hunt for me. It wasn't about the opportunity. And I've told you tonight, don't go to the program looking for opportunity because it's not a good reason to do it. If you're going to help out and you want to be help with landowner relations, if you want to be a face for the community to the non-hunting public, then you need to do it if that's what you want to do. If you're looking for opportunities to hunt, it's not a reason to apply yourself at that level. When I took the test, and I did all the requirements, and I think there was like 1,800 people throughout the history of the program that had passed the test out of 20,000 people that had taken the test. Not good.
It's like 2%.
It's like
20,000, only basically 2,000 make it. Yeah, that's like 2%.
10%.
10%. Oh, it's 10%.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not a math buff.
If you want to get technical, it's like 1.867, but hey, you could break it down. No, so 1,800 give or take had passed the written exam part of the Master Hunter program out of 20,000 people that applied and took the test. That's after your community service. That's after your shooting proficiencies and all the other requirements, right? Background checks, all those things. So people that are willing to do it and be in the program don't even qualify to do it because they can't pass the written exam. So things I've seen. Since I was raised in Washington State, I remember the time when there wasn't any bald eagles, right? Like there was a big deal when I was in elementary school. Like if you saw a bald eagle, it was like a rare sighting, right? They were on the endangered species list.
Yeah.
They had the spotted owl. They was on the endangered species list. There was all sorts of things. Now we see bald eagles in my front yard. I mean, I'm like there's 2 bald eagles that soar right here.
Yeah.
The Puyallup River.
They're everywhere.
They're
like crows now.
Well, I have a special hatred for crows because of the way they attack the eagles. I'm like, these little suckers. If an eagle would just spin around and grab one of them bastards, they probably would learn because they're pretty smart not to do that, right?
Yeah.
But they just don't. I don't know why they tolerate it. But there was a time when there was no bald eagles, and there's been things that happened in all these states, and now they've brought them back, and I think they're unlisted but still protected.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're protected. Yeah.
So I've seen that happen. That's a good thing, right? Bald eagles don't hurt anybody. I've seen the fishing, especially I fished so much. People say they forgot more about something than they currently know, and that's a fact.
I heard that recently.
Yeah. So I used to fish religiously, and I've seen in every single river, total depletion of fish stocks, almost to the point of at some points where they would close seasons down for a whole season because the counts were so low.
Mm-hmm.
And a big reason, hatchery management, complete die-offs. A year and a half ago,
Yep.
they had
like a whole bunch of fish got out.
well, they had the that creek over here. Daniel fishes it all the time.
Puyallup River?
No. Is it carbon?
No, it's a hatchery down across the Puget Sound. I don't know. I'm blanking right now. Anyhow, we had
Squally?
several 100,000 Chinook smolts that were ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
They were ready to be released, right? And they were almost to the age where they're going to go in the ocean. They're going to let them go. They're going to become adult fish. And they spent a good portion of time and money rearing these in net pens, in the pens, right? Well, we had a winter storm. Wind blows, trees fall on power lines, and the power goes out, right? Well, they had a generator system set up, and they had a guy that was living there. And I'm not going to get into the guy, but he was living there in the house that was on the hatchery grounds. And the power went out, and he didn't start the generators. And all the smolts died. It was like 300,000 or 400,000.
You had one job.
Because it wasn't circulating in water.
Because the
went
oxygenation.
stagnant,
Yeah,
yeah.
it-
You had
oxidation.
one job.
Do you know why? It wasn't just his job. Do you know why those fish died?
Didn't we just say because the water didn't have oxygen in it?
No. We did say that, but that's not why they died.
Oh,
They died because there was no fuel in the freaking generators.
so did he try to start it and it wouldn't start?
I don't know what he tried to do, but he didn't try to put fuel in it when they were bone empty.
Right.
So those are the type of things
So
where
there's two problems there. He
There's-
didn't try and start it, and nobody